I never imagined this would be my story. I never imagined I'd be the one to destroy everything. I used to look at women who cheated and wonder how they could do it. I judged them. I pitied their husbands. I told myself I could never be like that, and yet here I am, the villain in my own life. My name is Claire. I'm 32 years old, and this is how my husband came home early one afternoon with flowers in his hand and good news on his lips, only to find me wrapped around another man, our neighbor. That moment replays in my mind like a cruel film. I wish I could stop it, but it won't go away. It wasn't meant to happen, not like that at least, but maybe I should start at the beginning. Thomas and I had been married for nearly 10 years. We met when we were young, married in our early 20s, bought a house by 26, had our son Jacob by 27. We were that couple, the one everyone said had it all figured out. We worked hard, we were good to each other, we hosted every holiday, we supported our families. Then Jacob got sick. He was 6 years old when they said the word leukemia. That word ripped our world apart like someone tore our future to shreds and handed it back in broken pieces. Our life became an endless cycle of hospitals, test results, medications, fevers. Every day felt like walking on glass. Thomas turned into this quiet soldier, working long hours so we'd never lose our insurance, handling appointments, memorizing every medical term. He kept everything in color-coded folders like he could control the chaos with perfect organization. I stayed home with Jacob. I was always awake, always worrying, always exhausted, living on coffee, guilt and a desperation that clung to my bones. I loved my son more than anything, but inside I was breaking. Everything started disappearing. The house got quieter, and so did we. Thomas and I became like coworkers managing a crisis. We weren't angry, we didn't fight, we just moved past each other in the halls, trading tasks, handing over Jacob's meds, sharing tired smiles between IV drips and late-night phone calls. I kept telling myself this was real love, this was what vows meant. You survive together, you don't run away. But inside I was suffocating. I missed being touched without it feeling like an obligation. I missed someone asking if I was okay. I missed feeling like I was something more than just a mother, and I hated myself for wanting anything else, because how could I wish for more when our little boy was fighting for his life? Chris moved in next door just as spring started. He was in his 40s, lived alone, kept to himself, always gave a friendly wave. At first it meant nothing. He helped me carry groceries inside, once brought soup over when Jacob was admitted, again fed our cat when we were at the hospital for days. I was just grateful for the kindness. He didn't ask questions, he didn't look at me with pity, he just did what needed to be done. Then one afternoon everything spilled over. I was carrying a basket of laundry across the yard. I dropped it right there in the driveway. Clothes everywhere. Clothes were scattered everywhere. He came over, picked up one of Jacob's little t-shirts and asked if I was okay, and that simple question just broke me. I sat there on the sidewalk and sobbed, mascara streaking down my face. He didn't try to hush me or give me empty words. He just knelt beside me and said, "You don't have to hold it together right now." That one line shattered something inside me, because no one, not even Thomas, had told me that for so long. After that, Chris started showing up more often, but never in a way that felt wrong. He didn't push boundaries, he never made me uncomfortable. He'd wave at me when I was watering the garden, he'd ask how Jacob was doing, he'd drop off coffee he claimed he grabbed by mistake. I told myself it was just kindness, that I shouldn't read into it, but then I caught myself putting on a little makeup before stepping out to check the mail just in case he was outside. I hated that I cared if he noticed me, and I hated how warm I felt when he said I looked nice, but I didn't stop it. I remember telling Thomas once that I felt like I was disappearing. He looked at me with tired eyes and said, "We'll get through this," and I know he believed it, but all I heard was, "You're strong, don't break down." So I didn't, at least not in front of him. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I let everything go too far. Thomas was working late again. Jacob was asleep upstairs. I had just finished folding another pile of tiny clothes and stepped outside just to breathe for a minute. Chris came over like he always did, asked if I was okay, and I told him I didn't know anymore. I don't even remember who reached out first. Maybe it was him, maybe it was me. All I know is we were suddenly closer than we'd ever been. Our arms brushed and I didn't pull back. He looked at me, I looked right back, and I didn't say no. It wasn't some dramatic, passionate thing, it was quiet, almost gentle, but it changed everything. The next morning I promised myself it was a mistake, that it wouldn't happen again. It was one moment, one selfish, weak moment, and I hated myself for it. But then Thomas had to leave for a business trip. Jacob went to my parents for the weekend, and when Chris knocked on my door I opened it. I told myself it was just to talk, just to have someone there so the house didn't feel so empty, but deep down I knew that was a lie. Chris stood there with that hesitant smile, like he was asking if he could come in without saying it out loud, and again I didn't say no. I stepped aside and let him in. The house was so quiet, no cartoons in the background, no beeping monitors, no Reminders of all the things I had to hold together. I offered him tea. He said sure. We sat there at the kitchen table drinking cheap peppermint tea, not really looking at each other, not really saying much, and then he said, I haven't seen you smile in a long time. I laughed, this small awkward laugh, because there wasn't much to smile about. He didn't answer. He just reached over and covered my hand with his, and I didn't move away. You probably want me to say I pushed him back, that I came to my senses, but the truth is I didn't. I was tired, so tired of being strong, of being the anchor for everyone else, of being the glue holding all the broken pieces together. I just wanted to feel something that wasn't grief or fear or endless pressure. So when he leaned in, I didn't stop him, and when he kissed me, I kissed him back. It wasn't passionate or wild, it wasn't like some dramatic movie scene. It was slow and soft and sad, two people desperate for a little warmth in the middle of a cold storm. When it was done, I sat at the edge of the bed, the same bed Thomas and I used to share, and I cried, not because I regretted it, not yet, but because I knew something inside me had shifted in a way I couldn't take back. Chris didn't say a word. He just got dressed, kissed the top of my head like he was sorry, and he left, and I was alone. I spent the next morning trying to scrub the guilt off the walls. I washed the sheets twice, opened every window in the house like I could let the shame drift out with the stale air. I vacuumed a rug that didn't need it, wiped down the counters until my hands hurt. I just wanted to erase any trace of what I'd done. Thomas called that afternoon, his voice calm but tired like always. He said, hey, I've got some good news. I held my breath, afraid to hope. He told me Jacob's scans were clear. He was in remission. Just like that, the whole world stopped spinning. I should have screamed or cried or laughed with relief, but all I felt was this cold, heavy dread settling in my chest, because Thomas was coming home and I wasn't the same woman he had kissed goodbye. He said he wanted to surprise me. He was going to leave work early, pick up flowers, take me out to dinner, said we deserved something special to celebrate. I told him not to bother, that I'd cook at home, that Jacob was probably tired, that the house was a mess, but he insisted. Of course he did. Thomas always keeps his promises. That's who he is. I don't know why I let Chris come over that day. Maybe some part of me wanted to blow up everything. Maybe I thought I could pretend it wasn't real if I did it again. Maybe I was just too far gone to care. I opened the door for him like I'd done before. We sat in the kitchen talking about nothing, the weather, his dog, a story from when he was stationed overseas, and it almost felt normal. Then we kissed again, only this time it wasn't an accident. It wasn't about loneliness, it was a decision. And that's when I heard the front door open. At first I thought maybe it was the wind, but then I heard keys drop on the counter. Thomas's voice floated through the hall, casual, light. Claire, you won't believe. The traffic silence filled the room, and I knew what had happened before I even turned around. I could feel it in the way the air changed. I turned, and there he was, standing in the doorway, holding a bouquet of yellow tulips in one hand and a small pharmacy bag in the other. His eyes moved from me to Chris, then to the bed behind us, and he didn't even blink. Chris jumped up so fast he nearly knocked over the chair. He stammered something like, Thomas, man, this isn't what it looks like. But Thomas didn't even glance at him. He just looked at me, and in that moment I saw more pain in one man's face than I ever thought possible. It wasn't anger, it wasn't even betrayal, it was pure devastation, like someone had ripped the breath right out of his chest and he couldn't figure out how to pull it back. And I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but nothing came out. I reached for him out of instinct, panic, desperation, but he stepped back just once. That was enough. He didn't yell, he didn't ask questions, he didn't say a single word. He looked down at the flowers in his hand, then slowly laid them on the counter like they were something fragile. Then he turned and walked out the door. I stood there frozen, more exposed than I'd ever felt in my life, naked in every possible way. Chris muttered something to me, an apology maybe, then he left too, but I barely heard him. The only thing I heard was the sound of the front door clicking shut, and the silence that followed was louder than any scream could ever be. After the door closed, I stayed there. I didn't cry, I didn't fall to my knees, I didn't do anything. I just stood there in the middle of that quiet room, my skin still warm from someone else's hands and my heart somewhere down by my feet. I thought about running after him, screaming his name, but what would I have said? Wait, it's not what it looks like, because it was exactly what it looked like. So I just stood there, wrapped in a sheet in my own shame, feeling like I'd stopped existing for a while. Thomas didn't come home that night. He didn't call, he didn't text, he didn't even ask about Jacob. And the strangest part was I didn't blame him, not even for a second. Some part of me, the part that still had any shred of decency left, knew I didn't deserve his anger, because anger means you still care. Silence means it's over. Silence is a door slamming shut. Jacob was at my parents' house that weekend. Thank God. I don't know what I would have done if he'd come home to that heavy emptiness hanging in the air. I spent the night on the couch staring into the dark. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes I saw Thomas standing in that doorway, flowers in his hand and all that hope. Turning to ashes, I kept looking at those tulips he'd brought, yellow my favorite. They were still wrapped in the store paper, propped in the sink like they were waiting to be saved. I couldn't even touch them. The next morning I threw them away, not because I wanted to pretend it didn't happen, but because every time I looked at them I wanted to tear the whole house apart. He still didn't come home the next day. Instead I got a single text: "He can stay with you this week, I'll pick him up next Friday." That was it. No Claire, no we need to talk, no how could you, nothing, just cold simple arrangements like I was just a babysitter now. And when I read that message it cut deeper than any screaming match ever could, because it was clear he'd flipped the switch from husband to stranger, from partner to polite obligation, and there was no way back.